Hey there, friends. Welcome to Jesus and Java, a short series of videos where we break down the New Testament in a way that's fun, fresh, and full of faith and short enough for you to listen to whilst having a brew. Today we're diving deep into one of the most important books in the New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew. Now, if you've ever wondered, who is Jesus really? Or what does it mean to follow him? Then Matthew is the perfect book for you. It's packed with powerful teachings, jaw-dropping miracles, and the ultimate mission that Jesus gives to us all. So, whether you're listening on your morning commute, doing chores, or just kicking back with a coffee, get ready, because we're about to unpack the incredible story of Jesus, as told by one of his closest followers. Let's go. Before we dive into the book itself, let's talk about the guy who wrote it. Matthew, also known as Levi, was one of Jesus's 12 disciples. But before he became a follower of Christ, he had a pretty unpopular job. He was a tax collector, which, back in those days, was basically the equivalent of working for the enemy. Tax collectors were seen as traitors because they worked for the oppressive Roman government and were notorious for overcharging people and pocketing the extra money. So imagine this. One day, Matthew is sitting at his tax booth doing his thing when along comes Jesus. And instead of condemning him or calling him out, Jesus simply says, "Follow me." Matthew 9:9. And just like that, Matthew leaves everything behind. No hesitation, no second guessing, he just goes. Why? Because when Jesus calls, he calls with purpose. And Matthew knew that Jesus was offering something far greater than wealth or status. He was offering new life. Now, years later, Matthew is writing down the story of Jesus, not just for the people of his time, but for us too. So, what makes Matthew's gospel different from the other three? Well, think of it like this. If Mark is the action-packed superhero movie, and Luke is the detailed documentary, and John is the poetic masterpiece, then Matthew is the royal announcement. Matthew's entire goal is to show that Jesus is the King, the long-awaited Messiah that the Old Testament prophets spoke about. That's why he constantly connects Jesus' life to Old Testament prophecies, because he's proving to the Jewish people that Jesus isn't just a good teacher or a miracle worker. He's the fulfillment of God's promises. That's why Matthew's Gospel is often called the Gospel of the Kingdom. Over 50 times he uses the phrase, the Kingdom of Heaven. Why? Because Jesus didn't just come to save individuals, he came to establish God's kingdom on earth. All right, let's talk about some of the biggest, most powerful moments in Matthew's Gospel. 1. The genealogy of Jesus. Matthew chapter 1, 1-17. Okay, I know what you're thinking. A list of names? Really? But trust me, this isn't just any list of names. Matthew opens his gospel with a family tree, showing that Jesus is a direct descendant of Abraham and King David. Why does this matter? Because it proves that Jesus fulfills the prophecies about the Messiah coming from David's royal line. 2. The Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 5:7. This is one of the most famous teachings of Jesus. It's where he gives the Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers, the poor in spirit. But it's also where he totally flips the script on everything people thought they knew about righteousness. Jesus says things like, love your enemies, turn the other cheek, don't store up treasures on earth, but in heaven. This isn't just a list of nice sayings. This is a radical way of life. 3. The miracles of Jesus. Matthew 8-9, 14-15. Matthew records tons of miracles, healing the sick, calming storms, casting out demons, even walking on water. But these aren't just magic tricks. Each miracle shows that Jesus has power over sickness, nature, and even death itself. One of my favorites, Peter walking on water in Matthew 14. Peter steps out of the boat, full of faith, but then starts sinking when he takes his eyes off Jesus. And isn't that so relatable? When we focus on Jesus, we can do the impossible. But when we focus on our fears, we start to sink. 4. The crucifixion and resurrection. Matthew 27-28. Of course, the most powerful moment of all, Jesus' death and resurrection. Matthew describes the darkness covering the land, the earthquake, the temple curtain ripping in two, all signs that something earth-shaking had just happened. And 3 days later, when the stone rolls away, Matthew shows us that death doesn't get the final word. Jesus does. So, why should we care about Matthew today? Here are 3 big takeaways. 1. Jesus is the King, but not just any king. He's the King who serves, the King who sacrifices, and the King who invites us into his kingdom. 2. Faith over fear. Whether it's Peter on the water or Jesus calming the storm, Matthew reminds us to trust God even when life feels chaotic. 3. The Great Commission. Matthew ends with Jesus saying, "Go and make disciples of all nations." That mission isn't just for pastors, it's for all of us. If you follow Jesus, you're called to share the good news. All right, friends, that's a wrap on our journey through Matthew. But here's your challenge. Don't just listen to this, go read it for yourself. And if this episode encouraged you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and hit that like button and the notification bell to let you know when I have loaded more faith-filled content. Until next time, stay curious, stay faithful, and keep diving into the good news, and may the Lord our God bless you all.